By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome to the Hog Styles pregame show, brought to you as always by our friends at TicketClub.com. The Redskins are heading into Week 10 against Tampa Bay, owners of that 5-3 record. My name's Sean Conti. I got Steve Thomas, Alex Zeese, and Jamal Forrest here with me to discuss. We got lots to talk about because we had some roster moves this week, some pickups, and some IR placements. So before we get into that, because it's so depressing, is anything fun happening in your lives, guys? Any news?
Anything
this
fun?
is going to be rough.
Well, I mean, I've been working like crazy. You guys know that, and I found out I'm going to have to work on the weekends.
Oh,
and it's just a mess. Yeah.
Here's something.
Depression
Yeah.
through and through.
I've got something fun. It's actually 80 degrees in South Texas this week.
Oh, we're going to get snow
So,
soon,
hey.
and I think, Sean, you just got snow, right?
We did.
I actually
we got it a couple times.
because I'm a masochist about stuff like the gym, so I was up at 4:30 in the morning going to the gym, and I was thinking, man, it's like a muggy summer day, and I realized it was the middle of November. So that to me is fun.
Well, there you go. Well, if there's nothing else, then we should just do our jobs and get to this brutal
I can't think
conversation
of anything
up front.
fun. I'm sorry.
Hey, some weeks you can't. But we did have some moves with the roster this week. Maybe we should do, I don't know, what do you think, Steve? Pickups or injury stuff?
Well, let's
first?
start with the guys we got rid of, and so we can lead into the guys we picked up.
Technically not got rid of. Lost.
They're gone.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. True. They're an involuntary loss. But look, Paul Richardson, IR. Brandon Scherf, IR. Sean Laval, IR. You guys know that,
Right.
Richardson was a shoulder. Scherf was a pec, and Laval was an ACL. You got to think that probably we may have seen the last of Sean Laval.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I mean, how many times? This is his third leg injury in this season alone. So,
It's his annual injury.
It's not
something like
annual.
33 missed games.
Yeah,
in
that's-
the
that's
quarter.
wild.
if you have 3 a year and it's not annual.
Crazy.
The one thing,
Well, his annual
yeah,
trip to
right.
the
The
IR.
one thing I say is it's unfortunate that it took this long in this type of injury for the Redskins to realize they had a serious guard problem, and that's unfortunate. But
Right.
goddamn, like, can you finally address this situation?
Right.
I have nothing against Jerron Christian, and hopefully he'll get better and everything, but I still to this day don't understand why they drafted a tackle instead of a guy who's more versatile. It just still makes no sense.
I think I understand why they did a big picture, I think, but yeah, I'm with you.
They clearly.
I mean, sometimes you gotta. Sometimes I get long-term roster playing, but sometimes
Just draft for need. Yeah.
if the dam is broken, you gotta plug the dam up before you can start thinking about building
Right.
other stuff.
How about next draft like 3 guards at some point,
3 guards.
you
They clearly overvalued the position in its entirety. Like the interior offensive line, they felt can possibly work. With the help of 2 Pro Bowl, one Pro Bowler and then a good right tackle, but clearly it just it all went downhill.
Yeah, and by the way, for those of you who are out there complaining about O-line depth, I mean, I get it. We just complain about it, but it's also not normal to lose both starting guards and a left tackle,
Right.
and have a hobbled right tackle all in the span of 24 hours.
Right, and it's also
that's
not normal to have that happen in back-to-back seasons.
Right. Yeah, it's not. And so, I get it. Yes, they're a little thin, but at the same time, you just can't anticipate. It's hard to plan for losing an entire offensive line twice. You're not going to find starting quality players, as backup.
Also, most teams don't.
But that said, you had to have a second tier of guys because Laval, like we were just saying, you can't go into a season with an oft-injured, below-average playing guy with no backup plan. You can go into it, but you got to at least have someone behind
To me,
him
the negligence
that
is
can step
bringing Laval back and planning on him being a starter. He
Well,
might have been a great backup.
Yeah.
He might have been
Yeah.
a great backup guard.
in. Absolutely.
We have new starters, though. You want to hear about the new
We do.
starters?
Right.
3 of them. Let's do it.
Okay, we signed Luke Belanco, Jonathan Cooper, and Austin Howard. Now, the last 2 guys, Cooper and Howard, some of you might be familiar with. Belanco is actually a DMV native.
Yeah.
Fairfax County, Virginia. Went to the University of Virginia. So, although he hasn't done much NFL-wise necessarily, a lot of you guys out there probably know who he is. Played 39 games, started 15. He's been with the Jaguars, and he had a cup of coffee with the Ravens, and as well as the Patriots. He's yes, he's tall, but I think he's more of a true guard, even though despite his height. And Jonathan Cooper, 6'2", 308 pounds. He's been around a while. He was a first-round draft pick back in 2013.
Right.
Didn't pan out. He's been here, there, and everywhere. He's played 42 games, started 27. He was with Arizona, Cleveland, Dallas, et cetera, the 49ers.
A lot of injuries in his history, too, right? I believe.
Yeah, a lot of injuries.
Great.
That's why he hasn't played too many games, despite being around so long. The last guy is the one who's probably the most accomplished, and this is the guy who can definitely be the swing tackle / guard, I think. Austin Howard has been a starter for a long time. 2010 out of Northern Iowa. Was with the Eagles. Played a long time with the Eagles, Jets, Raiders, Ravens. Played 92 games, 88 games started. So I think they're probably, of those guys, I would assume Howard has the most promise just based on the fact that he has been around so long. Those are the three guys we signed. Notice, before, I'd like to just also point out that Paul Richardson, a wide receiver, went to IR, and we brought in another offensive lineman to take his place, which tells you something about the state of the offensive line and the health.
Right, even the guys who are healthy are hurting, because we all saw Moses is playing hobbled, like you said, but let's not forget that Ty Nsekhe was basically playing with one good arm towards the end of the Falcons game.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't on the injury report today, so I'm not too worried about him.
No, I'm not too worried about him. He's tough, but he was hurt.
I was going to ask you guys about that. Which one of these guys do you think we'll see suited up and actually playing? Because typically the contingency plan would be, like Alex said, would be an Nsekhe, like a Bergstrom or something, or,
one thing's for sure, you do not want to see Christian on the field anymore. Not until next year.
He was terrible.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, he was getting beaten up pretty good. And now he was playing, left tackle most of the game?
I believe left tackle.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in right tackle at one point in time, too, when Moses went out.
Right. But, I mean, left tackle's always a taller order, I feel like, for a new guy.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Sean's question, I think the plan, I would assume the plan is Nsekhe left tackle, Moses right tackle, Bergstrom right guard, Rouillet left center, and then the left guard is going to be up for grabs with whoever shows the most promise. Don't forget we have Casey Dunn, who's been here the entire season. He probably should deserve to get the first shot at it since he's been here. He knows the system. Of these guys, I would probably go with Howard.
Yeah.
Just because he's most accomplished. But, I mean, we're not there. We're not seeing practice. Who knows what any of these guys
I saw
like.
Gruden said to him the more important thing for any of these guys right now is just learning the terminology quickly. And whoever seems to have a grasp of that is the one who will get the first shot. So that's interesting to me that's his priority more than physical talent or anything like that.
The real problem is, I mean, these guys maybe who knows, maybe they can play.
Right.
I mean, I don't know much about them. I mean, Jonathan.
Let's assume
Austin
that
Howard.
they'll be slightly better than a turnstile. All of them. Something like that.
Okay. But the real problem is you can't just build chemistry in an offensive line in 3 days.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, this is why, I mean, credit where it's due. Callahan did a very good job given the situation last year. So let's hope that we see something similar this year with him, because he was able to get guys ready to play in like 2 days last season.
Yeah,
I mean, Jamal, do you know?
It was
like he doesn't have a choice now.
Jamal, do you know anything more about these guys than what I do?
I remember Cooper, just overall, like throughout his career, and, like he had his ups and downs, but I don't know, like guard play. We know Robbie would know better than I do. And our guy Robbie. So I don't know too much about him just in terms of following their career. I'm familiar with them. I know Cooper was, like I said, an up and down player. I don't know much about Howard in terms of like his reputation around the league. I just know he's an established veteran and things like that. But personally,
I was just gonna say I didn't watch Luke Belanco film, this week. I'm sorry. To me, I think the principal issue is who's in the best shape and who can pick things up the fastest. I think that's probably what Gruden's looking for more.
Yeah, and who can fit at guard? 'Cause I believe Howard, he's played at tackle too, right? I believe. Yeah,
he's played at both. Yeah.
I personally would go with him, and I don't think at this point, like Alex said, well, first thing, you don't want Christian playing at all right now. So when it comes to these two new signings, it has to come down to one of those two, and Callahan will have no choice but to get them prepared, regardless. Even if they don't know the whole thing, it's kind of like how I felt with HaHa heading into the Atlanta game. Even though he played a lot, even though they don't know everything right now, they're going to need help on the field. It's no other way around it.
Yeah, and I think probably the emergency guard ought to be Ty Nsekhe. I don't think Ty Nsekhe should come off the field for any reason absent injury. He's probably, he may be better than Moses at this point. He's clearly certainly our most talented backup lineman. So I think if they have a problem, the answer may be, if you have another guard go down, the answer may be Nsekhe goes inside and somebody like Jonathan Howard or Austin Howard may end up at tackle.
It's kind of like last year. We just got to hope that the outside guys can last until Trent Williams is healthy enough to play again.
Let's hope
they're
not
trying to be ready in
if that ever
3
happens.
years, give or take. See how it goes.
Right.
Jesus. All right, well, let's mention really, really quickly injured reserve placements. So before we move on to the game stuff, I'm sure everyone by this point has heard this for the most part. But is this true, Steve? Are there 13 names on there?
Whoosh. Give me 1 second, and I'll tell you. I didn't have.
Sorry to hit you with that, but
no, it's all right. I didn't have my chart open. And while I'm looking this up here real quick on the injury reports, we can just knock this out one thing about it. Did not practice Wednesday. Crowder, Dunbar, Thompson, Moses, and Williams. Peterson and Reed were limited. And then Anderson, Bibbs, Danny Johnson, Colt McCoy, Monte Nichols, and Greg Stroman all listed as full practice. So the DNPs, Crowder, Dunbar, Thompson, Moses, and obviously Williams, who's going to not play again today. Or this week.
Right.
Okay, in terms of IR...
They did say it was 13. Because I remember I quote tweeted it on Twitter.
Jesus.
Well, let's just go over this, shall we? Let's just go over this.
That's crazy.
Currently on
That's
IR,
crazy.
obviously Paul Richardson, Brandon Scherf, Sean Laval.
Right.
Then we've got Apke,
Right.
Tyler Catalina, Robert Davis, Manessa Garner, Darius Geis, Rob Kelly, Ari Kwanjo, Byron Marshall, who just came back,
Right.
Trey Quinn, and Cam Sims. And so that is 3.
Wow, that checks out.
Yeah.
By the way,
Wow.
I know it's hindsight now, but Byron Marshall coming back kind of seems like a waste of the guy who gets to come back a little bit with all these other injuries.
Should have been someone else.
Who's ready to come back?
I don't know. That's a fair question.
Look, at this point, they need bodies,
Yeah.
man.
I know. I know.
It's a MASH unit again. I think we ought to try to go for 20. See if we can get to the 20 on the IR.
Do it in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah, back-to-back record-breaking IR seasons. That's what I'm hoping.
Right.
Okay, I like your attitude. This is good.
If we can't win on the field, let's win at something.
Right. Right.
Hey,
let's have a good reason why we can't win on the field.
Half the roster's on IR.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's then move on to this game with all of these injuries in mind. So obviously it's the Tampa Bay Bucks decidedly playing with some Fitz magic or perhaps not at different times of the season. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not feeling terribly confident about this game. We talked a little bit before we were going to start this, and we said maybe we should start with defense. Should we still stick with that? Should we stick with the defense?
I think so, because I think we're all in that same boat. None of us feel overly confident right now. And I think that's the fan base.
Particularly not the offense.
Just the pulse of the fan base that we get on social media, I think no one's confident. No one's happy. Everyone wants everyone fired. That's where we are.
That's just Redskins fans.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's no
Right back
different.
at home.
The Redskins fans always have to have someone they want fired and someone
every loss.
they have to hate.
Every loss.
Yeah, every loss. Every loss is like this.
But let's talk a little bit about a little objectivity, shall we?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, the Tampa Bay the only reason the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a record that they do is that they turn the ball over a ton. Listen to some of these numbers, though. And now, bear in mind, they've had their bye, so they've only played 8 games. 7th in total points, 3rd in total yards, 2nd in yards per game, 4th in yards per play, 1st in passing yards, 4th in passing yards per attempt. Ryan Fitzmagic, 112.9 quarterback rating, only 7 interceptions. He's passed for 1,793 yards, which is only about it is not too much. It's only 100 yards less than Alex Smith has passed for in the entire season. This is in rushing. They're just atrocious. They're awful at rushing. Ronald Jones has been out. The draft pick out of USC.
So was Atlanta, though. Remember that?
Yeah, but these guys are worse. I mean, they don't. Tevin Coleman had talent. The Bucs barely run. This is a passing offense. It is a high-flying, downfield, big play passing offense. Their Achilles heels has been interceptions. And they're you ready for this? It's
well, before you finish,
they are 30.
Their Achilles heel has been Jameis Winston. That's the guy that's been turning the ball.
That's
over.
A more accurate statement.
And you're reading my mind. I was getting to that. They are 32nd and last in turnover ratio. They're minus 15 in turnover ratio. The reason is that famous Jameis has thrown 10 interceptions in just 4 games.
Wow.
Can we?
Jameis Winston is the guy that has been the Achilles heel. Jamal is exactly right.
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick has frankly looked like an All-Pro. To be perfectly honest,
yes.
Numbers,
although
he's
a little bit turnover prone too. He had a pretty egregious one last week. Although it looked like Evans might have stopped.
17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
Right. It's what you want numbers wise.
Yeah.
It's 2-1 or a little more than that.
Yeah. So honestly, when I hear these things about the team, this is what's going through my head. I'm thinking back to the Redskins facing other passing offenses of this caliber, and it seems like the secondary is inconsistent enough that you start having to shore it up and drop guys back, and that's when the running teams that aren't good at running actually find success against us, which is what happened last week to me, it seemed. They weren't a great running team. They had a really productive day because we couldn't hold anything down in the passing game. So that's looking at this. I don't think it matches up very well. It's the same story at Redskins offense versus their defense, but we'll stick to this for now. It's just not a great matchup in terms of strengths versus weaknesses.
Yeah, it's not. Listen to who the Bucs have played. They've played Saints, Eagles, Steelers, Bears, Falcons, Panthers. Beat the Saints, beat the Eagles. The only lower end team they really played is Cleveland.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, these are all top.
That's a tough schedule. Yeah.
Top of the division, and they've played. Not only that, they've only had 3 home games. They've been on the road doing this. They were on the road against the Saints, on the road against the Bears, on the road against the Falcons. On the road last week against the Panthers. I think this is a much better team than their record would indicate.
Yeah.
Because, number one, their schedule's been brutal. Number two, Jameis Winston is terrible, and they need to cut him and get rid of him. Now Ryan Fitzpatrick is back in charge. Who would have thought Ryan Fitzpatrick would have been the guy to straighten out that team? But he is. So it's a tough thing.
He has 9 lives.
Yeah, I hate it.
In the end.
I mean, he's what, 38 years old at this point?
Something like that.
The truth of the matter is, I think that if you've seen this guy, I really think that he lives in the swamp, and they boat out in the middle of like the Okefenokee swamp or something to go, yank him out of like the marsh. Because I mean, he looks like he's a mountain man.
Well, he's got a weird mix between like the super hipster look and the just total grunged out swamp hillbilly look. Yeah,
mountain man. Yeah,
he looks like he ought to be on the alligator killing show, not as a football player.
Yeah, a little
Sometimes.
bit. Yeah. Until you see him with like the big ass aviators and the crazy stuff he wears.
Then he looks like Conor McGregor.
Right. Yeah, that's who he really looks like. Yeah.
Well, so to get back to the game a little bit, it seems like if we're going to win this one, the guys that fell asleep last week and didn't show up very much, I hate to give Matt Ioannidis any guff, but him and Jonathan Allen and the guys up front need to find pay dirt this week. They have a susceptible center in Tampa Bay. That is an area you could attack if you can get pressure. It didn't happen last week. And so nothing happened. Just like the offense depends on Peterson, the defense depends on those 3 guys up front, it seems like, to do anything. If they're not getting it done, I don't know if we can contain them at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is a week that they can just go totally blitz happy, as much as good as that would do, because, I mean, my goodness, this is another week with a ton of wide receivers.
Yes, this is what, the third week in a row where we faced top wide receivers? Yeah.
I mean, Mike Evans, 6'5", right. Pro Bowler, old buddy Deshaun Jackson, who you realize what Deshaun Jackson is doing this week? Does anybody know this? This dude is.
I actually don't know
this. Dude is averaging 22 yards per reception this year. I mean, that's just crazy.
What's crazy is he's all upset right now too. He doesn't think he's getting the ball enough.
Well, I mean,
he's going to say that every year, no matter where he is.
And they're not.
I
mean, because they don't use him that much either. He's averaging like 40, around 40 to 50% of the snaps this year. So it's not even a high dosage compared to the other receivers that they use, especially what's his name, the other guy.
Right, but he's still getting, if he's getting 20 yards a catch, he's getting 2, 3, 4 catches and racking up yards.
Also hitting those 60-yard touchdowns. Like that's
exactly
just what he's really good for, honestly, when he gets in the game. And I mean, that's not good news for us, but I mean, shit, he doesn't really get used that much. But when he gets in the game, you know what you got to do, and you always have to do it.
Right.
I mean, part of the reason why he's not getting enough targets, in his view, is that there's a ton of weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, in addition to Mike Evans, 78 targets on the year, Adam Humphries has talent. He's got 50 targets. Chris Godwin, another 50 targets. And don't forget about O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard was supposed to be the next Rob Gronkowski, level good tight end. Hadn't quite panned out, but his quarterback's been Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. I mean, point is, Howard has 40 targets. The Bucs really, really spread the ball around a lot. You look at their roster and what they produced this year. This is not just two guys driving the boat. They go all over the place.
Yeah.
Is this like a new formula that's emerging in the NFL? Just go stupid crazy with the receiving threats like the Saints did, like Atlanta's doing. Like
I don't know if it's
a
new formula. I mean, it's basically people just taking some of these spread concepts and taking them into the NFL.
And just hyper-focusing talent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how new that is. The spread's been around for, 15, 20 years now.
It just seems like we've faced some teams this year with egregious dearths of talent in the receiving game, but shortages elsewhere. But they just ride that insane passing game, to victory.
I mean, they put an effort in their player acquisition into acquiring skill position players with talent.
Right.
They drafted Mike Evans. They drafted a first-round receiver that panned out. We drafted a first-round receiver that thus far hasn't panned out.
Right. That helps too.
They signed Deshaun Jackson away from the Redskins. Deshaun Jackson might be the greatest downfield threat ever. If you really look at what he's done, he's in the running for it. I mean, and they find guys like Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin. These guys can play, and they've just done better than the Redskins have at finding weapons. Their problem has been the quarterback.
I mean, your question gets to the larger debate that the NFL's had for. Going back to the 1920s of, is it speed or is it power? That is a discussion that's been about football since the beginning of the game. So right now there are certain teams that want to build for speed, like these guys. And then there are teams like the Redskins and a lot of the NFC East that still build for power because it's environmental also. All these southern teams and dome teams, they can build for, 5 wide, 4 wide, because they're going to play in nice weather. It ain't going to work in New York in the wintertime as well.
I mean,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the question would be, in terms of this game and not really the broader topic.
Sorry, yes.
How do you no, I mean, that's an interesting topic, but how do you beat these guys?
Right.
And you beat these guys by stopping their passing game. So how do you stop their passing game? I mean, I'm open for suggestions. Jamal, you must have the answer.
I don't have the answer.
I know you do.
But here's the thing: it's not more so how do you stop their passing game. What I would say, because the Redskins find a way, every single they find a way against the Saints. I can only do it. Well, actually, Saints, Falcons, and then the Colts. The issue in the Saints game was a lot of communication issues. And then we know that. At this point, we know that Josh Norman went rogue a couple times, abandoned his assignments. And then some people just got beat. And that was the issue against the Saints game. The Colts and the Falcons were more similar because of the fact that they got picked apart running the same crossing patterns and pick routes that just tortured them on the defensive side of the football. And this is one of the things. The reason why I point these out is because it's not necessarily what opposing offenses are doing to the Redskins. It is how can the Redskins become more of a disciplined football team when they face these type of offenses, because that's the reason why they're getting killed in the first place. And so that's not necessarily how do you stop them. It's more so sticking to the game plan, but also having the coaches adjust to these type of situations, because I'm pretty sure the Buccaneers are going to run the same thing that the Falcons and the Colts ran, because it's a copycat league. They don't care about what the Saints ran. But the Colts and the Falcons have a formula to beat the Redskins and move the ball efficiently through the air. Regardless if they need a running game or not, they've shown that they're the top 5 offense without the running game. So it's more so the Redskins being disciplined and sound in their coaching and in their execution on the field. It's not necessarily what the Bucs are going to do. And to be honest with you, at this point, what is it, 10 weeks in? Look, I love our defense. I say it all the time. Y'all see me on Twitter saying it. It's kind of hard to say that they're going to be able to stop a high-powered offense like this. Just in terms of staying focused and executing during the game day. I do believe they're a good defense, but they're not that good yet.
I mean, I don't think you're going to see. I think this team has the Bucs. Has too many weapons on offense to really hold these guys down. I don't think we're going to see Josh Norman traveling to follow Mike Evans around the field this week. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that we're going to see that, because they've got Deshaun Jackson on the other side. Nobody on our defense has Deshaun Jackson's speed.
No.
What do you do about him? You can't leave that as a one-on-one matchup. You have to bracket him. There's, O.J. Howard. Our linebackers were terrible, awful. It was their worst game, I thought, against the Falcons. They've got to cover a guy, a tight end with a ton of talent. What do you do about it? So I think it's a case of playing disciplined football. I think they probably are going to have to keep 7 in coverage again this week. I don't think you can blitz the nickel backer. I don't think you can blitz the safeties too much. I think you got to keep those guys back in coverage so as to not let Ryan Fitzpatrick just pick these guys apart and not let Mike Evans go crazy. And just beat somebody with his size. So it's a tough match.
It really is. If we don't get Dunbar back, I don't see how you have anybody who's even close to big enough to really defend against somebody like Evans.
Well,
can you imagine Greg Stroman against Mike Evans?
Oh, yeah.
It's like Sasquatch.
I don't want to envision that.
Or little Danny Johnson.
I don't want to envision that at all. The one thing I say, another thing that has failed the Redskins in these 3 losses, you're going to need that defensive line to step up.
Yep.
And if you know that this back end is not going to be able to hold against these things, and it's crazy because, again, when I mentioned the crossing routes, the ball was getting out of these quarterbacks' hands in less than 2 seconds, maybe even a second. It was as fast as they're getting out. So you're asking for the impossible technically with as quick as these releases are, but you're going to need that pass rush, or at least pass rush combined with some bump and run coverage to buy some time for that pass rush to get there. But you're going to need that pass rush to get home consistently and disrupt these timing patterns for the Buccaneers. To some extent, you need it.
It's just so very true. I mean, you are so right. The defensive front 3 and the outside linebackers have got to figure out a way how to be able to hit Ryan Fitzpatrick and how to make him uncomfortable, and they have to do it without a bunch of blitzes. Because we just can't afford that this week. So I think you're so right. Especially about a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think, he has a history of inconsistency. Make that guy uncomfortable and good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen to that.
And I just can't emphasize enough, by the way, I'm sorry, Sean, but how many yards this team is passing for, okay? They're first in passing yards in the NFL. That's the accumulating stat, having played one less game.
Yeah.
Okay? They've passed for 389 yards or more in every game but 2. Okay? They only passed for 219 yards against the Panthers, 250 yards against the Bears. Every other game, 389 yards or more.
That's ridiculous.
They're going to throw the ball all over the place on us. And that was against good teams and good defenses.
Yeah.
Well, at least you can say there's not a lot of mystery about what they're going to do. We should be able to scheme for this because it's very clear what they're good at. So
yes.
Let's move on to offense because, actually, talk about predictability. That's nothing more predictable than what the prognosis for our offense here. So
Vanilla might be too exotic for this offense.
Yeah, whoa, you're hitting me with way too much flavor there. Safe to say Adrian Peterson better have a good game. Otherwise, we're pretty much just going to phone this one in, right?
I mean, the only way Adrian Peterson's going to have a good game is if our offensive line magically develops into a gelled, skilled unit.
Yeah.
Huge question mark.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen and probably going to be quite
So
ugly.
probably
I don't
not,
wanna be too
probably
negative.
no.
I mean, what is true is what Sean's saying is the 2018 Redskins win when Adrian Peterson has a good day, and they lose when he doesn't.
Right.
Sometimes it's not his fault, like certainly against the Falcons, that was placed on the O-line, but the bottom line, that is the bottom line.
Yes.
It is the pattern has held true the entire season, and it will probably hold true again on Sunday.
Yeah, and to go into even more, and we talked about on defense how it wasn't a good matchup in terms of strengths and weaknesses. It's the exact same case on offense. Tampa Bay is not a good passing defense, but we can't really beat bad passing defenses, so it doesn't matter. They're a much better rushing defense, so again, it's just a bad matchup.
And you're giving them too much credit by calling them a bad passing defense. They are an atrociously awful, terrible, horrendous, pick your negative adjective.
Yeah, but we said that about
passing
Atlanta,
defense.
too, and we still had some struggles there.
I'm just saying that it's,
right.
These guys are horrible. They've given up a million points. They're last in the NFL in points. 29th in yards, 31st in passing yards per attempt. Their opposing quarterback passer rating, last in the NFL. They've given up the opposing quarterbacks averaging 124.3 quarterback rating against these guys. That's just crazy. Red zone defense, 90%. Last in the NFL, 90%
Wow.
trips to the red zone result in touchdowns. I can't tell you enough how awful this defense is in every way, except they're mediocre against the rush. That is their only redeeming quality. And Jason Pierre-Paul has 8 sacks.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they've only had 1 interception on the year. It is an awful defense. And the Redskins truly should have no excuse if they can put field together in a decent offensive line.
Like Alex was saying, everything Steve just said was true. They're atrocious. But like Alex was saying, so is Atlanta, and we came out and just remind you, first drive, -6 yards. Next drive, 15-some yards.
Don't burst
then
my bubble.
17
Don't ruin
yards.
my high.
I'm not trying to, but it's just shocking. What is your confidence level that the Redskins can even test a passing defense?
It is a 3
I don't
for me,
have any.
and that is not a solid 3. It is a soft 3. I don't have any confidence in this offense at all. I've said it since I've noticed it, probably about in week 3, week 2. I don't know. This offense is some bleep without Adrian Peterson, and it just will never. I don't see it improving at all, regardless. And that's even with Paul Richardson being out for IR for the season. That made no difference for this offense because there was no production with him on the field. So it was never going to get any better or worse with losing a guy like him. And it's just unfortunate. We're not going to get into the contract talks now or Alex Smith, but it's just unfortunate for speaking for this year and the production that this offense has brought. It's nasty.
I mean,
I think the Redskins may have the worst wide receiver group in the NFL.
Possibly.
They right now as it stands today.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't compared, so don't at me or do at me. That's
actually, add us because I'd love to hear who it is. Who's worse.
Let us know.
Yeah, fine. There you go. Okay, if you can think of a group that's worse than the Redskins,
right?
Wide receivers, let us hear you because
right now it's them.
They don't have. There's no dynamic playmaker.
No.
And Paul Richardson was supposed to be that guy. As Jamal said, he really wasn't being that. He wasn't.
No,
that
he
guy.
was basically doing what you expect a number 2 or 3 to do.
Yeah, and so I don't know who the playmaker is. The wide receiver now. I mean, Josh Doxson would be it, and he's so inconsistent.
I mean,
never
personally,
know.
I say
4 catches, 50 yards, yay.
The Bills receiving core, just off the top of my head, but I say we're a bottom
There's
6,
Okay.
maybe a bottom 12 for sure. We're bottom 12 for sure. That's no question, but fringe bottom
no
6 in terms of talent at that position is pretty.
Yeah.
Is pretty
Okay. Bills at the same time, you don't know because the quarterback situation theirs somehow worse than anybody else's.
Yeah.
But,
I would like to point out that I think the Tampa Bay defensive front, despite everything bad that's happened, they have more talent than you might think. Gerald McCoy can play. Jason Pierre-Paul used to terrorize the Redskins. When he was with the Giants.
he did.
And, Mr. Three Fingers is, now in Tampa. And he's got a lot of sacks. He's had 8 sacks. Even Bo Allen. Bo Allen has some talent. They're other defensive tackle. So they do have.
Think about who they're matched up against this week.
They're matching it up against some guy named Luke Bowanko.
right. Steve having to double check the paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. If I have to double check, it's a problem. I mean,
The good news is they'll have no
Jason
film on him.
Pierre-Paul Jason Pierre-Paul matched up against somebody named Luke Bowanko is not going to go.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly, and it's hard to see Adrian Peterson continuing with much. I mean, he's going to put a lot on his shoulders and get some yards, but it's so hard to see him getting these 100-yard games.
No. Yeah, I don't see that
offensive
happening
line like
again in the foreseeable future.
This is based off something Alex said right before we started, but okay, just imagine we go into this game and Adrian Peterson gets nothing going because, offensive line can't open lanes for him. Defense craps the better, whatever. Alex was saying this could be, potentially, it could be the beginning of the downward slide for the Redskins in 2018.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Just think about who's coming up. The Texans have won 6 in a row.
Right.
They're rolling, man. They're so hot and cold. Then we've got the Eagles twice.
Yep.
We've got Dallas in Dallas on Thursday, which of Thanksgiving
That's going to be a tough one.
Redskins are historically terrible on Thanksgiving Day and historically bad against Dallas in Dallas. I mean, they've got a lot of road games coming up.
And here's my concern with the whole offense at this point. If you're looking for hope, who are you looking for it from? I mean, Chris Thompson, I don't know if he'll come back. He's pretty badly hurt, it sounds like, and always on, not going to come back 100%.
I'm putting my faith in Maurice Harris.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the guy, and I don't know how much that can really be the guy.
Right. I mean, think about it. It's all veterans in the latter part of their career. Or, these patchwork people we've picked up. Or, kind of like long tenured guys with a team that are solid but nothing great. You're right. There's just not a lot of
to be fair, Michael Floyd was never supposed to be on the roster.
Right.
This is just due to injuries. They've lost.
Neither was AP.
No, I mean, they've lost an enormous number. Yeah, we lost a ton of O-line, but we lost most of our wide receiver core. The intended wide receiver core, half of them are on IR.
Right. The star running back is on IR.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody go around and say one nice thing about the Redskins before we do game predictions, because now I'm getting really
I like that they've been wearing the red pants on the road.
You just took mine. Are you kidding me? That was what I was going to say. Dude.
I like the fact that Alex Smith had, I thought his best game of the year against the Falcons. And so continue that.
Nice.
His best year being 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But 300
Forget
yards.
about the numbers. What Alex Smith's problem, I know you guys out there hating and want to tar and feather him and all that. I get it. But at the beginning of the year and in the first 2 games, he was missing a lot of reads.
Yeah, he was making reads. I'll give you that.
And he was afraid to go downfield. He was checked down Charlie. All that has slowly gotten better. And I thought he did a pretty. He wasn't perfect, but I thought he did much better in that regard against the Falcons. They just got worked, by the Falcons. But so that's a positive.
Okay. You guys don't actually have to say anything positive. Steve probably covered just about all their.
You didn't get Jamal may have something great.
Yeah,
we didn't
I do
Jamal's
got
a smart
something great.
one.
We have the best running back that's played the game in a decade on our team, and I have 100% confidence in him.
There you go.
Hey,
there we
That's
go.
the
That's
best one
actually
yet.
very true.
That's far better than my crap.
All right. Well, let's jump into it then. Let's predict this game and put this one to bed this week.
Oh, God.
Okay. I'll kick us off because why not? Tampa Bay Redskins. I just don't see much happening on offense for Washington this week. It's hard for me to see Adrian Peterson having much success. We are not going to have success through the air, not good in the red zone. Tough for me to see a high-scoring game from us. So I'm going to say I'm going to give us 14. Tampa, I think, is probably going to run away with it. Let's just double it and say 28-14 Tampa.
Okay. By the way, the spread on this game, at least early in the week, was 3. Tampa -3, which that strikes me.
That's
as
really low.
Yeah, kind of a bit
solid.
optimistic, on the Redskins side. Maybe they're trying to get people to bet Redskins on that one, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I hate to be so negative, but I got to agree with Sean. I mean, I just don't see this offensive line getting their act together.
No.
So quickly with a bunch of street free agents. Maybe those guys can play. Maybe they'll surprise me. And frankly, I mean, history is on the side of the Redskins pulling it out, doing better. This is the same thing when they beat Seattle last year. It was the same scenario. On the road, a bunch of injuries. Trent Williams wasn't there, and they had their best game of the season.
Yeah, gutted it out, right.
And so,
Good call.
Yeah, and so, but it was a different style of offense back then, so I just don't see it. I think it's going to be something like 35-10.
Yeah. I was, you say 10, and 10 sounds better than 14 in my head.
All right.
Alex,
All right, well, I'll go. I think we were all assuming Ryan Fitzpatrick is starting, right? Not.
Yeah, if famous Jameis is starting, that's a different story.
Right. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. Here's my little caveat. If Fitzpatrick starts, we're losing this thing something like 35-17. If Winston starts, I think we win this thing something like 21-14. So.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, that's my little caveat. But I think Fitzpatrick starts and we get blown out.
Yeah.
All right.
What you got, Jamal?
So, I will say last week, heading into the Falcons game, I gave our defense too much credit. And on the show, I stated that I had full confidence in them, that they'll be able to make up for what they did in Atlanta. But lo and behold, the sample size became two high-powered offenses that they couldn't stop. So what I will say is, at this point now that I gave them some credit that they'll show up, they're going to have to prove to me that they can. And I don't see them being able to stop an offense like Tampa Bay, even if they are one-dimensional. And I wouldn't be able to expect the offense of ours to keep up. And with that being said, I can see a 34-28 type of game, 34-24 type of game, something like that. We'll be able to get in the 20s against this defense, but it'll be one too many possessions in which we either punt or maybe even turn it over. I don't know. 34-24, I'll say for Tampa Bay.
I think if we could field a decent offensive line, they could put a bunch of points up against this team. I'm just afraid that the offensive line is going to be a disaster.
I'm with you there. I think we're all kind of in that camp.
And by the way, the other thing is Deshaun Jackson is a little bit petty as a person. At least that's I don't know the man, but that's always been my impression of him. And so he may want to put up big numbers against the Redskins just because the Redskins let him go.
Sure.
Just
he'll streak to the end zone, stop just short, and turn around and do his usual little taunt thing. That's his style, man.
So watch for that though. Watch for Deshaun.
That's a good call.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Tampa Bay coming up. We will obviously be back with you with a recap episode once that game is over, and we will see you next time right here on the Hogstye. Take care.
Just once, I'd like to have a game where we can preview and say, the Redskins should easily win this game. We got to put big numbers up. It's going to go well. Yeah, but we had to struggle in that game. On 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 that game.